My name is Eleanor Brooks. I'm 34 years old. And 4 days before everything fell apart, I genuinely believed I was about to marry the man I loved. Not because our relationship was dramatic or passionate in the movie trailer sense, but because it was steady, predictable, safe, the kind of love you trust enough to build a future on. I thought that was enough. Ethan Caldwell and I had been together for 3 years, engaged for 7 months. Our wedding was scheduled for 2 months away, early autumn, downtown venue, warm lights, neutral florals, elegant but not flashy. At least, that's what I thought we'd agreed on. Ethan worked in branding and partnerships for lifestyle companies. His world revolved around perception, how things looked, how they photographed, how they landed on social media. He dressed well without trying, spoke confidently, knew the right people. I was a civil project manager, stable job, good income. I wore tailored slacks, sensible shoes, and drove a reliable sedan I'd owned for 8 years. I didn't chase trends. I didn't curate my life. I believe love didn't require that. Wedding planning had consumed the last few months. Deposits paid, invitations sent, endless discussions about table linens, lighting temperatures, guest lists. Ethan had been increasingly tense, more irritable than usual. I assumed it was normal stress. I didn't realize I was the stress. That Monday afternoon, I came home early from a site review. Ethan was working from home, seated in the living room, laptop open, headphones in. I didn't want to interrupt, so I slipped my shoes off quietly and headed toward the bedroom. Then I heard my name. "I know," Ethan said, his tone half laughing, half exasperated. "She's great. She's kind. She's responsible. She's stable. But she's just so plain." I stopped walking. "Like, my friends don't get it," he continued. "They keep asking what I see in her. She doesn't have the lifestyle, or the look. Being with her kind of lowers my image." My chest went tight. Not sharp pain, something heavier, denser. He kept talking. "It's embarrassing sometimes. Like at that gallery opening last week. Everyone's in designer everything, talking about Milan and Tokyo, and Eleanor's there in a department store blazer talking about infrastructure budgets." A pause. Someone else spoke on the call. I couldn't hear the words, but I heard his sigh. "I know. The wedding's already planned. Maybe once we're married, I can help her upgrade a bit. Style, network more. She just needs to be less herself." I stood frozen in the hallway, heart pounding so loudly I was sure he'd hear it through the walls. Less myself. That was the moment something inside me went very still. I didn't cry. I didn't confront him. I didn't storm into the room. I quietly turned around, picked up my keys, and walked out of the apartment. I drove to a coffee shop across town and sat there for 2 hours, staring at nothing, replaying every word. My phone buzzed repeatedly, texts from Ethan asking where I was. I didn't answer. By the time I drove back home that evening, I already knew something he didn't. The wedding was over, and he had no idea yet. I got back to the apartment around 7 that evening. Ethan was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, stirring something on the stove like nothing in the world had shifted. He smiled when he saw me, the same familiar, easy smile I'd trusted for 3 years. "Where were you?" he asked. "I texted you like 5 times. "Had some things to take care of," I said. "What kind of things?" "Work stuff." He accepted that immediately. That should have told me something, but at the time, I just noted it and moved on. We ate dinner, talked about nothing important, watched an episode of a show we'd already half forgotten. He kissed me goodnight. I lay awake long after he fell asleep, staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing. Every sentence from that afternoon replayed in my head. Plain. Embarrassing. Lowers my image. Not said in anger, not said in a fight. Said casually, honestly. The next morning, Ethan left early for his office downtown. He kissed my cheek on the way out and told me he loved me. The door closed behind him, and that was when I started making calls. I didn't rush. I didn't panic. I pulled up the wedding folder on my laptop, the one with contracts, receipts, timelines. I went down the list slowly, methodically. First, the venue. They reminded me of the cancellation policy. 60% of the deposit forfeited if canceled within 90 days. I told them to proceed anyway. My voice didn't shake. Next, the photographer, the florist, the caterer, the DJ. The decorator Ethan had insisted on for the reception layout. Some vendors were sympathetic, others were annoyed. all of them processed the cancellations. Thousands of dollars disappeared in the span of a few hours. I didn't care. The dress was already paid for and in Ethan's possession. The invitations were already sent. Those losses were unavoidable. Everything else that could be undone, I undid. By Tuesday afternoon, there was no wedding left to plan. That evening, Ethan came home talking excitedly about wine selections and whether we should add a chocolate fountain. I nodded, gave opinions when he asked, smiled when appropriate. He had no idea none of it mattered anymore. Wednesday morning, while he was in the shower, I packed a bag. Not everything, just clothes for a few days. My laptop, toiletries. When he came out wrapped in a towel, I was sitting on the edge of the bed. "I'm going to stay at my sister's place for a bit," I said. He frowned. "What? Why?" "I need some space. Wedding stress. I just need a few days to clear my head." He looked concerned, but not alarmed. "Okay. Do you want to talk about it?" "Not right now." He nodded, kissed me goodbye, told me to text him later. I left. I drove straight to my older sister Marianne's house. She lived about 30 minutes away and didn't ask questions when I showed up with a bag. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Not really," I said. "I'll explain later." That evening, my phone lit up. An email from the venue, standard procedure, confirming the cancellation, sent to both of us. Ethan called immediately. "Eleanor," he said, panic already creeping into his voice. "I just got an email saying our venue is canceled. Is this a mistake?" "No." "What do you mean, no?" "I canceled it." Silence. "Why would you cancel our wedding venue?" "Because I'm canceling the wedding." More silence. Then, quieter. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the video call I overheard on Monday," I said. "The one where you told someone I'm plain. That being with me lowers your image. That you're embarrassed by me." His breath caught. You heard that?" "Every word." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult him. I just stated facts. "So, yes," I continued. "I canceled the venue, and the photographer, and the florist, and the caterer. There is no wedding, Ethan. We're done." "Wait," he said quickly. "Please, let me explain." I hung up. He called back immediately. I didn't answer. The text started pouring in. It wasn't what it sounded like. I was venting. "Please talk to me." I turned my phone off. For the first time since Monday, I felt something close to calm. Thursday passed in a blur. I took a personal day from work and stayed at Marianne's, moving between the couch and the guest room, not really doing anything, not really thinking either. It was like my mind had put everything on pause to avoid breaking under the weight of it. Around noon, Marianne finally sat down across from me. "Okay," she said gently. "Tell me what happened." So I did. I told her about coming home early, about the video call, about the words Ethan didn't know I was supposed to hear, about canceling the wedding without saying a word to him first. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. "You're not crazy," she said. "If someone tells another person that being with you lowers their image, that's not a misunderstanding. That's how they see you." "Oh, everyone's going to say I overreacted," I said. "Let them," she replied. "You protected yourself. That matters more." That evening, I turned my phone back on. 78 notifications. Missed calls. Voicemails. Texts from Ethan. Messages from mutual friends. A few from his family, one from my mother, asking if I was okay. I called my mom back. She already knew. Ethan had called her, crying, saying I'd canceled the wedding without warning. I told her the truth. There was a long pause on the line. "Oh, sweetheart," she finally said. "I'm so sorry." "I lost a lot of money," I said. "I blew up everything without even giving him a chance to explain." "You didn't blow anything up," she said firmly. "He did, when he decided you were something to be embarrassed by. You just refused to accept it." By the time we hung up, I felt steadier. Friday morning, I texted Ethan. "I'll come by the apartment Sunday at noon to get more of my things. Please don't be there." He responded instantly. "Please, Eleanor, can we talk in person? I made a terrible mistake." "You meant what you said," I replied. "Sunday, noon." Saturday night, around 10, there was a knock at Marianne's door. She answered it, then glanced back at me. "It's a woman named Clara. She says she's Ethan's maid of honor." My stomach dropped. I stepped into the hallway. Clara stood there, looking shaken, eyes red, hands twisting together. "Please don't hang up on him," she said immediately. "I know you're angry, but you need to hear what he told me tonight." I let her in. Clara sat on the couch. I sat across from her. "Ethan called me," she said. "He was drunk, crying, saying he ruined everything." I went over to the apartment. "And?" I asked. "He told me about the call you overheard," she said. "And then he told me who he was talking to." I felt my chest tighten. "Who?" His ex-girlfriend. The room went very quiet. They've been talking again for months, Clara continued. Nothing physical, at least that's what he claims, but definitely emotional. She reached out after seeing the engagement announcement. I stared at her, numb. He told her those things about you because he was trying to convince her, and himself, that marrying you was a mistake, Clara said, that he'd chosen wrong. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because he asked me to, she said softly. He said you deserved the whole truth. So I was the safe option, I said, the fallback. Clara nodded, eyes glossy. I think he was testing whether his ex would take him back. When you canceled everything, it forced him to face what he'd done before he was ready. The truth settled in slowly. What he'd said about me wasn't a moment of stress, it was strategy. And somehow, that made it worse. Sunday morning came faster than I expected. I drove back to the apartment alone, hands steady on the wheel, stomach strangely calm. The panic had already burned itself out. What was left felt colder, sharper, clarity without emotion cushioning it. The apartment was quiet when I unlocked the door. Ethan had respected my request not to be there. His shoes were gone from the entryway, his jacket missing from the hook by the door. It felt staged, like he wanted the space to look emptier than it actually was. On the kitchen counter sat a thick stack of papers. A letter, 6 pages, handwritten. I didn't sit down to read it. I leaned against the counter and went through it standing up, like I might need to walk away at any second. He confirmed everything Clara had told me. His ex, Lena, had reached out 4 months earlier. They'd been talking regularly. He'd never fully let go of her. When she reappeared, it reopened something he thought he'd buried. The video call I overheard wasn't him venting to friends. It was him trying to convince Lena, and himself, that he was making a mistake marrying me. He wrote that Lena had ultimately turned him down. She was seeing someone else. That was why he'd gone through with the wedding, because the door he wanted to walk through had already closed. The letter was full of apologies, promises, explanations, claims that he did love me, that he'd cut off contact completely, that he wanted to fix things. I read it twice. Then I tore it in half. And again, I dropped the pieces into the trash. I packed my things methodically. Clothes, books, personal items, the small things that quietly become yours when you share a life with someone. It took 3 hours. Before I left, I wrote my own note and placed it on the counter. We're done. Don't contact me again. I've started the process of getting my name off the lease. You have 60 days to refinance or find a new place. I left my key beside it. That afternoon, I called a lawyer to handle the lease. Monday morning, I called the officiant, one of the few vendors I hadn't been able to cancel immediately, and officially called off the ceremony. By Monday evening, everything was closed. No wedding, no fiancé, no shared home. Ethan tried to reach me anyway. Texts, emails. He showed up at Marianne's once until she told him to leave. He wanted closure, an explanation, a chance to apologize in person. I refused. Closure wasn't something he was entitled to. It's been 4 months since I canceled the wedding. The date we were supposed to get married passed quietly. No dramatic breakdown. No last-minute regrets. I spent that day hiking with Marianne, deliberately choosing a trail with no cell service, no distractions, no room for what-ifs. I live in a small one-bedroom now. Nothing fancy. Clean lines, good light, rent I can afford on my own without stress. The kind of place that doesn't impress anyone, and that's exactly why I like it. Ethan didn't disappear immediately. He tried reaching out for weeks. Emails, texts. Once, a long voicemail I didn't listen to all the way through. I blocked his number after that. Clara texted me once, about a week after she came to Marianne's. I'm sorry for how everything turned out. He's genuinely devastated. I'm not asking you to forgive him. I just thought you should know. I replied once, I appreciate your honesty, but him being devastated doesn't change what he did. I was his second choice. I deserve better than that. She responded almost immediately. You're right. I told him the same thing. I'm sorry you went through this. That was the last time we spoke. Financially, the damage was real. Between lost deposits and breaking the lease early, I'm out around $18,000. A painful number, but every time I think about it, I remind myself what that money bought me. Freedom. My parents have been solid through all of it. My mom keeps saying I dodged a bullet. My dad told me he was proud of me for standing up for myself, which, coming from him, means more than he probably realizes. Friends have been divided. Some think I overreacted, that I should have confronted Ethan immediately instead of canceling everything behind the scenes. Marianne asked me once if I ever regretted handling it that way. No, I said. If I'd confronted him first, he would have explained it away, minimized it, made me doubt myself. By the time the full truth came out, the wedding was already canceled. I was already out. That's calculated, she said. Maybe, I replied, but I protected myself. She nodded. That was the end of the conversation. Ethan reached out one last time about 6 weeks ago. A long email, not asking to get back together, just apologizing. He said he'd started therapy, said he finally understood how he'd sabotaged the relationship, that seeing me as plain or boring was him projecting his own insecurities, trying to justify why he was emotionally cheating. He said losing me was the biggest mistake of his life. I read it once, then I deleted it. There was nothing left to say. I've gone on a few dates since then. Nothing serious yet. I'm cautious now. I pay attention to how people talk about others, about ambition, about image, about improvement. I know what I bring to a relationship. Stability, loyalty, consistency. Those aren't flashy qualities. They don't photograph well. They don't impress strangers at gallery openings. But they matter. Ethan didn't see that. And that's fine. He wasn't my person. I learned a lot from this. I learned that when someone tells you who they are, even indirectly, you should believe them the first time. I learned that being someone's backup plan is worse than being alone. And I learned that canceling a wedding is expensive, but not nearly as expensive as marrying someone who never fully chose you. My name is Eleanor Brooks. I'm 34 years old. I live alone now, rebuilding my life after walking away from a wedding 4 months before it was supposed to happen. Some days are harder than others, but most days I'm grateful. Grateful I chose myself.